What is going on, YouTube? Chris with Journos, Comics and Pop Culture. Today I'm going to be showing off some of my comic collection. I've gotten a lot of requests to show off some of my runs. And today, for a specific request that I received a couple weeks ago, I'm going to be showing off my Uncanny X-Men run. Before I go into that, I just wanted to let everyone know, some of you might be aware that I've been postponing my 1,000 subscriber contest for many months now. Right now it's about to be a 1,500 subscriber contest in a minute here, but I am adding a near mint copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 800 to my giveaway pile. So I just want to let everyone know that. Keep a lookout for that contest coming soon. I know we have everything going on in the world, but why I have some downtime, it might be a good time for me to at least set up the contest so people can start entering and start getting some entries in, even though it might be some months before we can actually call a winner and get everything together and so forth. So, but it will be coming, everyone, I promise. So, Uncanny X-Men, guys. Now, this is my main box, but recently, let's come over here, I had to pull some of my X-Men run because it was just, I needed some breathing room in my box, my main long box, and I just wasn't fitting any. So the start of my run is actually over here, organized within most of my Bronze Age and some Silver Age runs. So are you guys ready? Let's start showing this off. I'll be talking while I'm showing it off. This is most of my run. I have probably just a few, maybe 4, 5, or 6 issues in my pile to be pressed, but that's it, and nothing like no keys or anything big. But so let's start. So the beginning of my Uncanny X-Men run, I do have some reprints. We got the Giant Size X-Men. That's the one that came out last year. I have 2 copies of those. I have my Marvel Milestone edition of the Giant Size X-Men and a recent reprint of the X-Men number 1. 2 copies of those, as well as my Marvel Milestone. I love the Marvel Milestones editions, and those were coming out when I was a kid, and I really enjoyed having those and reading those. There's a first appearance of Banshee Marvel Milestone, X-Men number 28. All right, but getting into the actual run, my earliest issue that's not a reprint is X-Men number 25, and as you can see, there is a good portion of the cover missing. Yeah, that one's pretty beat up. Then we have X-Men number 30. X-Men number 37. X-Men number 41. Origin of Cyclops. X-Men number 47. One of my favorite early X-Men covers. X-Men number 51. Some awesome Steranko art. His artwork is just so, definitely one of my favorites of the time. The way he utilized colors was beautiful. X-Men number 79. So I don't have too many Silver Age. X-Men number 86. Don't have too many Silver Age X-Men's, but once it starts getting into Bronze Age, right around here, actually, I have like almost every issue. X-Men number 117. So I guess more of the later Bronze Age, 119. I am missing some of the Phoenix Saga, of course. 128. Here's a reprint of 133. And then there's the reprint of 137. I do have, this is interesting. X-Men number 138. This book is in near mint condition besides this. So obviously it's not near mint, but there's no blemish or any issue anywhere in the book. It is beautiful except for this, and I don't know if this was a cutting error coming off of the the print, or if it happened somewhere along the line by a human while it was in their collection. I don't know, but it's pretty gnarly there. But I mean, the rest of the book is beautiful. Sucks. But I'm still happy to have it. Here's number 140. 144. 2 copies of 144. This one has a cutout at the bottom. 145. So I think this is where actually I have like every issue all the way up into the 90s. 146. 147. 148. I'm going to tell you guys a little story about X-Men. 149. Oh, you know what? I do have one key book, 150. That is not in here, and that's the first appearance of Alpha Flight, 120. So that's the only one that's not in this, in the actual run. So let's go to the big long box here. And like I said, I'll start going over. I won't have to say each number out. Let you guys just get a nice, good look at each cover and whatnot. But I want to tell you guys, starting from 151 here. Oh, and some of these books still need presses. I started just so much isn't like, I was going through this and I wanted to get a lot of them out and stack them up in my to be pressed pile. But for one, since my press is not working correctly right now, also I think I might start pressing by run. So that way I can keep them in my collection until I'm ready to address that run and then pull every book out from that run that I need to press. But the history of X-Men in me, in what X-Men means to me as a collector. So X-Men to this day are definitely my favorite comic book group, superhero group out of any other. I mean, Spider-Man is my number 1. Favorite superhero, Captain America number 2. And then X-Men is my favorite group. And they were very present when as being a kid. And my first introduction to the X-Men was from my older brother, who was 2 years older than me. He and his friends were huge on X-Men, and I remember them buying the comics. I think at this time, which is in probably the late 80s. At this time, I was into like, you know, Ninja Turtle comics, Mickey Mouse comics. I was into Spider-Man. I collected Spider-Man. But I wasn't really into a lot of the I think, you know, I was collecting some Superman at that point. But I was more into like the Archie stuff. You know, I got like the Fraggle Rock and and stuff like that as well. So X-Men was introduced to me by my brother and his friends. And I remember them bringing home the comics and also getting the toys. And once I saw the toys, I was like, wow, these are cool. And the first toys that I remember, or some of the first ones that I remember, were the toys that had talking backpacks. So they had a little square piece that connected to the back of the toy. And I believe they had 3 buttons on them. One would say something, the other would make like a battle noise. Like I remember Wolverine. One of the buttons was like his claws, the sound of his claws. And then there was Cyclops, and one of them was like the sound of his shooting his beams. Magneto. So that was really cool. I ended up getting some of the toys myself. And then from there, I was looking for the comics at my comic book shop. So that was my introduction. And then, you know, like a couple years after that, is when the animated series came. And I believe I was already big on Batman, the animated series. And of course, Ninja Turtles at that time, and Transformers. But G.I. Joe, all those. But those had already been out for a while, of course. But when X-Men, the animated series came out, that I was hooked. I remember waking up every Saturday. I mean, and I would record the show on VHS. And I had every single episode. And I even remember we used to go on little weekend trips sometimes. And I would have my grandma who lived with us, who would stay home sometimes. And if she was home, I would have her record the X-Men cartoon. for me. So lots of cool memories as a kid with X-Men, and I was at a prime age during that time to just be so pulled in to the franchise of X-Men. Yeah, so and of course during that time too, Jim Lee's X-Men run came out, and that was huge, and I'm sure most of you know that was just so huge. And that was really sealed the deal. And to be honest, when I started getting into the comic books, it was really the Jim Lee run. I didn't have too many Uncanny X-Men books until I got back into collecting in the mid 2000s. That's when I really started beefing up my X-Men my Uncanny collection. But as a kid, I had like every issue of the Jim Lee X-Men for like the first 4+ years that it was going on. So we're at 180 here, and as you can see, I think I've had every issue so far. Most of them are bagged and boarded nicely. Some of them still need some boards, and I'm trying to get a lot of them over to Mylar. Do I not have 181? That is 181. Oh yeah, the only one that I'm missing here still, going up all the way into the 90s, is 266, Gambit's first official appearance. 182, or 3, 184, 185, 186. Some of them are still in their like original boards from the 90s. 187, 188. Some of them I've gotten over probably like the past 5 to 8 years if they have an A1 tag, because I've been shopping A1 since around 2012, since I moved from Richmond out to the Sacramento area. 189, 190. So as a kid and looking at like the early 90s, getting big into the X-Men, I obviously got big into Wolverine. This needs to press. It's irking me. And I did start collecting the Wolverine run. And I think I started collecting that run as a kid when it was like in the early 20s maybe. And I read every issue of that. And then I remember when the Weapon X storyline was brought to that that run, and I remember, I forget which issue it was off the top of my head, maybe in the late 30s or 40s, I don't know, maybe book 50 actually, that had the yellow cover, and it said classified, and it had Wolverine's claws ripped through it. It was one of my favorite issues as a kid. 195, 196, 197, 198, 199. It'd be nicer if all these were in Mylar to flip through them for you guys. There's 200. These don't even have backings on it. I got to get to them. There's issue 200. Now we're at 201. First Baby Cable. Let me pull this out a little more. Actually, I'm going to pull this whole thing out. All right. All right, we got 202. And you know, actually, I had to readjust these books here. 202, that way you guys can see them better. 203. So, yeah, Wolverine, big on Wolverine. And then by the time I was becoming an adult, you know, we had the X-Men movies come out, and I was really hyped for those movies, because those were the first big kind of mainstream. You know, I think we had, Blade in 98. But did I see that? I don't think I saw that in the movie, Blade, in the movie theater, but I'm pretty sure I saw it soon after when it came out on video. But I was excited for X-Men, and I remember being extremely disappointed when those movies first came out. And I think the main reason was because of the look. Now, obviously, I out the back, I thought Hugh Jackman did a great job um, for portraying Wolverine, but I wasn't too happy with James Marsden. Is that his name? His Cyclops at first. He kind of grew on me though. Um, and then I liked Femke Jameson. Is that her name? That did Jean Grey. I liked her portrayal as Jean Grey. Um, but there was a lot of issues for me. Obviously, I love Professor X and Magneto. Ian McKellen and you know Jean-Luc Picard, just perfect. Patrick Stewart's perfect. But overall, I didn't like the visual that the film was giving me in terms of seeing the X-Men on a big screen. I hated that they were in all black. I hated that their costumes looked nothing like the comics, and I hated that Wolverine never wore his suit. Even if his suit was black, and he had the hood on or the helmet on, right? His mask on. Even if it was black, like in the like they did when was that? Around like 2009, when they did the X-Force run of what was it called? Like Sex and Violence or something like that. And then I think they did it during the like one of the vampire runs where Wolverine's suit was black. So I was really bummed by that, but overall I grew to enjoy the first two decently so, and I was extremely let down by The Last Stand. I think a lot of us were. That movie just dropped the ball. A couple issues of 218 here. And I can't wait to see X-Men in the MCU, which, man, I really hope that the world gets back to normal soon and we can work together to get through this crisis, because, production is put on hold right now. Production is put on hold, and we have, speaking of the MCU, we have Black Widow. That's obviously done, that we know has been pushed back, and that is looking more likely that it might have to end up on streaming services, to where we do a pay-per-view on demand, like a $24.99 price point. And that sucks. We know that Eternals is done, so we have Eternals ready to come out in the movie theater or whatever. At that point, we'll see where we're at. But I don't know what other MCU movies are. I don't think there's any other ones that are even complete, let alone started production. I'm not sure. So maybe if somebody else knows, you can let me know. But it's tough. So the longer we are in this situation, the longer it's going to take for the MCU to stay on track. All right, guys, I had a little interruption there, and I kind of lost track. So I'm thinking sorry if I showed this already. Got 228, 229, 230. Yeah, I had an interruption and then lost count of where I was. There's another 230, 231. This gets tough going through a long run like this. 232. And it gets tough trying to go through each book. 233. But for you guys, 234. Love this cover, as well as we'll get there. 235. I'll show you one of my favorite covers of this era. 236. 237. 238. 239. 240. 241. 242. 243. 244 First Jubilee. Funny thing, this was around when I started collecting Uncanny X-Men. This is when I first started getting issues, and this was when did this come out? 1980, was it 89, I believe? So yeah, that sounds about right. And this was one of my early issues of Uncanny X-Men, and this is the same bag and board that it's been in since I've had it as a kid. And I know because when I was a teenager, or like around 1995 or 1996 is when I started getting out of comics for a while there and started going down the wrong path. I tried selling my comic books and I put my price tag on there. I did sell some, which I regret. But funny thing, because I was explaining in my video yesterday about somebody was trying to, shoot me down, saying that I was a fool for saying that I would rather have standard acid gloss buffer boards than E. Gerber halfbacks, because they're just so flimsy, regardless if they're 100% acid free. I would rather spend my money on fullbacks. So I'd rather either get standard like BCW boards or fullbacks and not halfbacks. Because he tried saying that your standard boards with the acid-free gloss buffer are the worst boards ever. Respectfully, we had cardboard. We had cardboard back in our days. And that's all this is. It's cardboard back here. So I would take this out right now and show you guys if there's any kind of oxidation going on. If we could see any kind of staining on the cardboard itself, but I don't. And like I said at the end of that video, a lot of it goes to how you store your books regardless. If you're storing your books in a decent climate, they're going to be okay. Not to say that you don't want to get an acid-free buffer board or a fullback. Obviously, it's going to give you more protection, but yep, there's the cardboard that we used to have as kids. 245. 246, that's not even in a bag or board, but I have another copy there. 247, 248, 249, another 249, 250, and 251. There's one of my favorite covers. Got a couple issues of that issue. A couple copies of that issue. We got 252. 253. 254. 2 issues of 254. 255. And we got 256, another one of my favorite cover. And this, I believe, is the first Psylocke in continuation. 257, another 257, 258. There's the reprint 258. With the variant 259, 260, 261. Psylocke was one of my favorite X-Men's as a kid too. There's a second copy of 261. 262. 263. 264. 265. Those need to get properly bagged and boarded. Oh my gosh, I have 266. Just kidding. This is the reprint. One day. It is on my 2020 want list. 267. 268. 269. 270. 271. Excuse me. 272, 273. So I have been 274. Over the last couple years, 275. I have been going back, and this is what I like to do, and this is why it's so hard for me to get caught up on comic book reading. Well, as well as being in school. I was in school for the 5 years there, and it just, comic book reading was really put on a halt. It sucked. 276. Got a couple of these issues. Ooh, shoot. You guys didn't see that. That's why you need to put a backing board in. Here's another one of my original copies that I tried to sell with the cardboard back. Yeah, I've been going back and reading the X-Men run. So I got some years back, I think I want to say like maybe 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I got the black and white essential books of the original X-Men run, you know, from the Silver Age, the original issues, and started reading those. And I read all of those, and then I've been reading, when it turned into Uncanny X-Men, I was reading all of those, and I had a Marvel Unlimited for a while, so the issues that I didn't have, I was using that to read from, and just trying to read back through all the run, and I'm currently in like, I forget exactly what issue I'm on, but I'm in like 1983, I believe, and I haven't read that in a while because I've been focusing, reading on getting caught up on Spider-Man the last few months. His name is Bishop, 282. And second printing. And this is so beat up. But the first printing is in near mint condition. I bought that off the rack when I was a kid. All right, man. We're 26 minutes into this, and we're at issue number 285. Got a long way to go, guys. So I hope you guys are enjoying this. Like I said, I know it's fun. It's fun for me to watch people show off their collection. You know, it kills the time, and it allows me to just see what other people have. It's kind of like I don't know. It's like why is it fun? Why is it fun to see other people's collection? You know, I guess it's part of the joy of just going through comics, and you can sit there with somebody, and it's kind of like you're going through it with them, and you're right there with them. 2 copies of that. It also, for me, allows me to see issues that I might not have, and maybe that I want because it's a cool cover or it's a key issue or something. And I'll take notes when watching people's videos. 291. So there's many reasons that we find joy. Another issue. Original copy. It's a kid. There's many reasons why we find joy in watching people, collectors and YouTubers, show off their comic books. I remember Executioner's Song was one of my favorite story arcs when I was a kid. 193, 194. I remember they came with all the cards. Because I was, you know, about collecting as a kid. I was all about the collecting aspect, but I was also about reading. And I also collected cards. Baseball cards, sports cards, all kind of cards, even this Marvel cards. But when Executioner Songs came out, I would buy 2 issues if I could, because I wanted to open one up and read it, and then keep the card, pull the card out that they came with, and then I also wanted to keep them in their bags, sealed, for collecting purposes. So most of these I have two copies, one open and one not open. See, this is, I only have one of the, I swear I had more than one of these. Maybe I gave it to my kid. I bet that's what happened. When I had doubles, when my kids got into comics some years ago now, and I would have doubles of books, I would give them my doubles to read and to, like, mess up, because I really didn't care. I wanted them to be able to enjoy comics, and part of that when you're young is not really, you know, my oldest, who got into comics when he was about 6 years old and actually started reading them, he was always pretty decent with them, like knowing that, okay, I don't want to wrinkle it, or I do want to take care of it. And he was always decent with how he handled them. My youngest, though, who is still really into comics and is 12 now, Even now at 12, he doesn't care. He will carry his books wherever he goes. He'll read them more than once, and he enjoys collecting for reading. He doesn't care if they're going to be worth money or keeping them nice and neat in poly bags. And you know what? I'm not going to tell him otherwise. I'm not. Because I'm not going to take the joy. Oops, I pulled this out. I'm not going to take the joy away from what he enjoys about collecting. You know what I mean? Now, if he wanted to save up his money and buy like a $50 or $100 book or even more expensive book, which he's not at this age, then I might say, okay, look, this is going on the shelf. You're spending this much money, it's going on the shelf. You are taking care of this book. But that's not the case right now. He loves dollar bin diving, and you know, I get him a subscription to Teen Titans Go, and then I did like Scooby-Doo in the mail, 2 copies of that. And yeah, so, and that's why, you know, I had one of my subscribers, Don, talking about how, you know, he was saying how preservation is vital and aesthetics is pointless. And respectfully, Don is a very opinionated subscriber. He watches a lot of my videos and is always commenting. And if you're watching, Don, now, I appreciate you. I've learned to understand your perspective. And I don't agree with Don all the time. I don't. But that's the joy of being able to have fellow community members and have different opinions, and we can agree to disagree, and we can discuss our different viewpoints. But Don was saying how preservation is vital, and that everything else is secondary or shouldn't matter, is irrelevant. And I told him, I said, Don, you know, just maybe that's for you, but you can't say that that's how it is or should be for every other collector. And every collector is different, and we can advise, but it's not our place really to dictate, right? So for me, I was arguing that aesthetics mean a lot. I am definitely a protector of my books, obviously, but aesthetics aren't pointless. Aesthetics mean a lot to me, and it's hard to explain, and I explain it by saying maybe it's the artist in me, but a part of what keeps me collecting is the aesthetics of the book. Or of the books and how they're stored. It means a lot. It has a lot of value to me. So when looking at my son, he doesn't give a damn. He doesn't care whatsoever. He loves the characters. He loves reading the stories on the pages. And that is all that matters to him. And that makes me happy. You know, it makes me happy that he's happy getting lost in something that he enjoys. So, all right, we are on 311 here.